Harvey's Hot Takes is back, and it's back for the whole year. Harvey's back as our title sponsor. Thank you, Harvey's. Bryan Hayes joining us with some hot takes. Kazuma Okamoto introduced as the Blue Jays' newest slugger on Tuesday. So the Jays had Dylan Cease, Cody Ponce, Tyler Rogers. They still might bring back Bo Bichette. They might add Kyle Tucker. I guess my question for you, Bryan Hayes, you and I talked so much last year in that incredible run by the Blue Jays about their chemistry, about how much they seem to love each other, about just how cool it was to watch this particular group of players have success. Do you think if you make too many changes to the roster in the offseason, it might threaten what made last year's team so special?
It's definitely possible, and it's definitely something that Ross Atkins and company are considering based on what Ross said today. Like, you have to consider what's already here, and you have to thread the needle here in terms of making change, which is important. The best team in the league is going to do it. The worst team in the league is going to do it, and the Blue Jays are clearly no different. But there is a sense I find in the market that there's such an appetite for going out there and getting Tucker, bring back Bichette. It's like everyone's just playing amateur GM, or every fan's being basically a video game player here, and they're on dynasty mode. They just want the greatest, most expensive team ever, and they're losing sight of the fact that the Blue Jays were in the 11th inning of Game 7 of the World Series. They had more wins than any team in the American League. They're a very good team. They've had a very active offseason. So I think it is something that has to be considered here. How much change is necessary? Because being too loyal can be detrimental, and we've seen it a lot in pro sports. Great season, we're not changing anything. I certainly wouldn't suggest that. Clearly, Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, and company have decided they're not going to go down that road because change has already happened. But too much change can also be detrimental. So you've got to thread the needle here if you're Ross Atkins. And I'm very curious to see how it plays out, because the turnover with the arms, that was going to happen. Max Scherzer's old. He's moved on. Bassett has run its course. He's moved on. You go out and get Cease. You go out and get Ponce. You bring in a bullpen arm. That's not drastic change. But Okamoto and Tucker, that affects everything, because there's only so many at-bats every single game. And if you believe in Addison Barger, you got to let him play. If you believe Nathan Lucas finally found himself last year, you got to give him at-bats. Ernie Clement, is he the real deal? Well, you got to find out, because if you bring in too many guys and you push him onto the bench or push him out of the rotation completely, then you're never going to quite know. So it is an important needle to thread here for Ross Atkins. I think they've had a great offseason, an active offseason. They're clearly a really good team, and I think they're better even today on paper than they were at the end of last season. So go get Kyle Tucker, but be prepared for ruffling some feathers here, and they got to find a way to keep that chemistry. It's uber important, because I was down there for all the games. I was around the team. I was listening to Schneider, listening to the players. It was really palpable, Jay. You can really pick up on it. I know it's intangible. I know you can't put an exact finite number on what that means, but it means something. And I think the Jays know it. They got to capture it. They got to keep it. So make changes, but don't get too crazy. I think that's what Ross Atkins is thinking right now, and I think that's basically what he said on Tuesday afternoon in Toronto.
Also Tuesday, Brad Marchand, despite his best efforts to get inside the heads of the Maple Leafs, the Leafs beat the Panthers for the second time this season, Bryan. That's 5 wins in their last 7. They are now 2 points out of the final wildcard spot. Are you, Bryan Hayes, esteemed broadcaster, ready to declare the Toronto Maple Leafs officially back in the playoff race?
I'm ready to say that. They're officially back in the race, right? They have not established themselves as a playoff team because, as you just said, they're not in a playoff position. But they deserve credit here, right? Their first 30 games were dreadful. They played horribly. They got caved in every single night. They deserved to be in the position they were in the standings. And there was a fork in the road. A couple of weeks ago, just before the Christmas break, they went through Nashville, they went through Dallas. It was ugly. There was a fork in the road where they could have turned left and said, forget it. You know, we've been in the playoffs 9 straight years, too many injuries, Marner's gone, maybe we don't love the coach anymore, maybe the GM hasn't put together the right pieces, and they could have tailed off. Instead, they hung a right, and they said, we're going to fight our way back into this race. And that's all they've done here. And you don't get a banner for that. You don't get flowers for that. But what you've done is come alive if you're the Maple Leafs. And I think there's a few guys you got to point to as to why this has happened. First and foremost, their captain, Austin Matthews, scored again tonight. The guy's disposition, his look, his feel, his vibe, his play has completely changed since Christmas. right? It's only been a week and a half, 2 weeks, but he looks vintage. And it's a crazy thing to say for a guy who's 28. He's not 38, but he looks like he did 2 years ago when he was at the height of his powers. And they need him to continue to do that. So the captain's come alive. Matthew Nyes, who was dreadful again 5-10 games ago, has come alive. Joseph Wall's healthy and playing well. Their penalty kill is elite, best in the league right now, and their power play's coming together. That's the league. That's the NHL in the regular season. Best players, special teams, goaltender. If you have it, you can win. If you have it, you can make the playoffs. Over the last 5 to 7 games, that's exactly what's shown up for the Leafs. So credit to them for not saying we're out of it. They've come alive. They're back in the race. I'm willing to declare that. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee they make the playoffs, but it was a big, big statement. Starts with their captain, Austin Matthews. He needed it. He had to arrive. He had to show back up. He's done it. Leaf fans are starting to come alive and believe again. Definitely a much more positive vibe around this team than what we saw just 2 weeks ago.
Enjoy your Angus burger and frings when you watch your Packers on Saturday night. Thanks for this, Bryan.
Hot Takes is presented by Harvey's. Harvey's 2 for $8 event is back. Enjoy 2 original or veggie flame grill burgers topped just the way you like. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.